Hello, my name is Yuma. I'm an associate professor of marketing at McGill University. I'm very excited to be invited to speak in the Grocery Innovation Conference. In the next half an hour, I will talk about consumer grocery shopping and how it's affected by consumer anxiety, in particular in the context of the ongoing pandemic. A few things about me. I have done a lot of consulting and academic research on consumer behavior. My specialty is food marketing, retailing, and big data analytics. I use different marketing tools and data to study how consumers react to various marketing incentives and how micro-environmental issues such as price inflation and now the COVID pandemic, how they affect consumer behavior and how they affect the retail sector. I'm also leading a new master program at McGill. It's called Master of Management in Retailing. I'm speaking from a lot of research and consulting experience, as well as my personal experience as a shopper. So next, I will share my screen with you. We have seen firsthand over the past year how quickly grocery shopping has changed, and it's still changing and evolving today constantly. Anxiety level is high, not just for consumers because we are dealing with a pandemic, and this drives a need for the grocery industry to adjust and to accommodate those changes. And it also presents some potential opportunities from technological advances. So in this presentation, I would like to talk about three things. First, what is the current state of grocery shopping, including the good and the bad things for consumers, and how that affects their anxiety level. And second, what are the methods or KPIs that retailers can use to measure and track the anxiety level and uncover consumer experience. And last, I want to discuss how the grocery retailers can potentially mitigate anxiety. What are the tips and tricks to manage shopper anxiety in this ever-changing environment and challenging environment? And how you can reshape the experience for customers and potentially create a situation that will set a new habit cycle for consumers so they will like your brand more. Let's start by taking a brief look at the current state of grocery shopping and how shoppers feel when they go shopping in a grocery store. So take a look at these photos. They might remind you something. They look quite familiar, right? Either because you're one of those shoppers waiting in a long line and hectic line, wait to buy food and supplies in the early days of the pandemic, or because you have seen images like this circulated in the news and social media, or maybe you heard some story from your friends or family. There are many studies trying to look at how the situation has changed for consumers, how this has impacted consumers' shopping behavior. I like this quote because I think this describes the situation quite well. The grocery sector has accelerated the adoption of online grocery shopping. However, bulk of the business are still in store. With all the measures, restrictions from public health directives, something that used to be fun to do, now it's more mission-minded activities. So prior to the pandemic, very few people actually worry about going shopping groceries. And they don't really think about, well, this might lead to sickness and discomfort. But now this is becoming a reality in North America. From my personal experience, grocery shopping is actually a fun activity for my family. But now with the speed of uncertainty and with the potential of getting sick, I don't think that's the same as before. And also you can talk about the transition from offline to online shopping. Offline shopping is often a social event, but online shopping, people shop by themselves alone. The social aspect is missing from that shopping experience. I have some other work which look at how social shopping should be reintegrated into online channel, but that's a different story. From the large amount of research of consumer behavior and how it changed because of COVID-19, I put together a timeline for a few key statistics. So in March 2020, a study found that 65% of Canadians, they were concerned about the risks at the grocery store. And around the same time, it's a time of panic buying, that another study found that almost 50% of grocery sales increase in the week of March 1st, 2020. In the November of the same year, we saw that over 4 million more Canadians will order food online than before the pandemic, which means we have roughly 10% of Canadian population that started buying online. And that is amazing. And in May of this year, 2021, another study showed that 55% of Canadians would prefer Groceries to offer a redesigned store, so allow for more physical distancing and more safety. And we can say that this is not going to stop, this is going to continue. The pandemic is not over, and it's becoming part of reality, and therefore there is potentially a continued uncertainty and supply chain disruption, which will continue persisting consumer anxiety. How many Canadians are affected by anxiety? Before pandemic, roughly 5%, they report the presence of anxiety. This is in general. This is not about shopping in grocery stores. However, after the pandemic, almost 30% of Canadians report high level of anxiety. Again, this is in general, not about grocery shopping alone. It's associated with fears of unknown consequences. So what does this mean for retailers? It means a lot more Canadians are worried about potential negative outcomes, including potential negative outcomes in grocery shopping. Consumer anxiety is not something new. There are many existing documented cases. So for example, before the pandemic, consumers may be stressed by many factors such as price, varieties, and I listed a number of them on the left-hand side of the slide. They might also worry about the judgment from other shoppers. If it's something that's very important for them personally, if they're buying for a wedding dress, for example, or if they're buying a house, which is a very expensive purchase, they might feel stressed about the purchase. They will introduce anxiety. Since the pandemic, sources of anxiety have dramatically increased to include perceived and actual shortage of product supplies. There is also lack of uniformity between stores, especially with the changing rules regarding wearing masks, social distancing. Sometimes there are limits on food, change to the checkout areas, and sometimes you see huge lines outside the stores because the limited number of customers in stores. This is in addition to live long term with the health concern about COVID. So it's not surprising consumers, grocery shoppers, are facing increased and stronger level of anxiety since the pandemic. This is the elephant in the room. We all have to deal with that. So let's take one hypothetical customer as an example to think about how the different factors could influence anxiety level in a very simple grocery shopping process. This is from my personal shopping experience at the beginning of the COVID pandemic, and I think many of you might also be able to relate. So I call this person Anxious Annie. So in Annie's case, she identifies that she needs to go to the store to get some very basic items. But even before she goes to the store, she wonders, well, are those things going to be in stock, So look, here is some uncertainty even before she goes to the store. Before COVID, there's no doubt, store will always have bread and milk in stock. But now, sometimes it's not 100% sure. Suppose Annie goes to her regular store, however, she finds there's a long line outside, and now she starts to regret her decision. Maybe this is not a place I should come, maybe I should go to a different store. I'm have to wait outside for half an hour. And suppose she waited and she actually, found the item, she gets to the checkout, and then she realized, okay, there's some new procedures. Can I still use my reusable bags or not? She's not sure. She feels a bit embarrassed in that process. Then she gets home and she kind of look at the receipts. She realized, oh, this is a lot more expensive than what I usually pay for compared to before pandemic. There's some price pressure here. Now she started questioning the entire shopping experience, whether it's worthwhile to go into the same store again. This is a very typical consumer purchase decision process. As you can see, problems might exist in every single step of this process. Next, let's examine what are the potential factors causing anxieties and what could be the potential outcome of changed consumer behavior due to anxiety in each of the steps in the decision-making process. The motivations that drive consumer grocery shopping have changed because now risk is front and on top of mind. During that problem recognition and search phase of the customer journey, people are not only concerned about the risk of COVID itself, but they also know they have to change their routines and their comfort level has been different since the pandemic. So for example, the fear of loss, the fear of uncertainty in supplies is a huge motivator for consumers to panic buy. And if they are looking for convenience and comfort, they might choose to shop online instead of offline shopping. That's why we have seen such an uptake in online grocery sales and usage. And of course, with COVID, it came with fear of sickness, the negative outcome, and therefore, a lot of consumers are buying more health maintenance products like multivitamins and things like that. And finally, the motivation of having confidence in the future is another early pandemic motivators that we saw as consumer hoard products. Consumer might have visions for the future. They might feel it's very unclear, and hence they are changing their behavior. Once they become more confident, then they may not have to buy things they don't need, and also they don't have to buy them in bulk. Retailers should understand and accommodate those new motivations, new drivers, and consumers want to shop less frequent, very likely, but however, they might buy more during each visit. Grocery shopping is usually considered to be a low involvement, low effort type of task for consumers to complete. Consumers would routinely go to a preferred store, purchase the items they usually buy, and maybe make a quick decision about buying something new if it's on sale or if on display. But now, after the pandemic, there are so many more elements to consider in the same routine they used to be very simple to do. Consumers will have to decide first, what do you want to shop online, offline. If they decide to do it offline, they have to think about what are the particular measures being put into a store they go to. There could be directions they have to follow in store. There could be extra requirement when they get in or get out of the store, and they may be concerned about their safety. And of course, with inflation, they're also concerned about the rising prices. I think this actually might create some opportunities for retailers who can do an excellent job to make people's life easier when they make their purchase decisions. And given this become a bit more involved decision process, people will think about which store can offer the best experience. They might re-evaluate their past choices. So it's not automatic anymore. It's something they were constantly thinking about, and it actually gave you some opportunities to win new customers. At the point of purchase, consumer experience are shaped by many different things. I put them onto three big brackets: people, place, and things. However, I think the biggest issue at this moment is this lack of consistency in shopping experience across stores. For example, I like to use curbside pickup service. However, pretty much every store has its own policy on how that service is provided. Some store requires you to call a phone number once you arrive. Some store says you can click on a link in your email and someone will come out with your product. And the parking space for the curbside service are often in different places of the parking lot. Based on which store you go to. And for some stores, it's not even in the parking lot, it's in another place. So this lack of consistency might create frustration and also create anxiety before people go to the store. All these issues introduced by the pandemic has brought on new attitude and behavior from consumers. So for example, we saw more abandoned shopping cart in stores, perhaps because it's becoming kind of frustrating to adapt to the new shopping environment. Or maybe the store is just too busy, the line is too long. And consumers come to store less often. They spend less time in stores to browse for new product, which means they make less impulse purchases. And this also leads to a change in perception of brands and retailers depending on how they implement those new measures for the safety of COVID-19. And of course, people are shifting online. There are more people using apps like Instacart and Uber Marketplace. As a result, this new consumer behavior is going to be with us. This is new reality. And retailers have to understand the change and adapt to the change. I have talked about the negative impact. However, it's not all bad. There are positive changes that have come from this pandemic, which might create disruptions in the grocery industry. So the first is the acceleration of online shopping, of delivery, curbside pickup. I think we all know this is where industry should be going, but the pandemic really makes this happen in 1 year instead of 5-10 years. It makes it happen fast, and companies actually have very good opportunity to test and implement different strategies. Another result of the pandemic is the perception of essential for the entire grocery industry. Consumers very much see grocery and food as essential. As a result, essential suppliers and essential service providers are valued more in consumers' mind. There is also now easier and better access to digital information given this online transformation. And this information might include nutrition facts, ingredients, the ability to compare foods, to take time for consumers to research food information. And this might help grocery industry to prepare consumers for healthier eating and for better health outcome. DIY also become popular again, very popular now. So consumers are looking for products and suppliers who can assist in their DIY projects. Another positive is the sense of togetherness in grocery stores that consumers might feel. It's kind of strange, but for some people, the grocery stores during the lockdown, it was one of the very few opportunities to see other people, even it's at a distance. And finally, groceries, industry, grocery sectors, as I mentioned before, now they are very much front of mind for consumers. Consumers are rethinking their habit. They're trying new stores, and grocery shopping, it's becoming a bit higher effort decision. So consumers are making those decisions, they are weighing their options, and this is a time to think about how you can use this change to support your brand strategy. The second thing I'd like to discuss today is how can you measure and track consumer anxiety level. There are many scientific measures we can take. For today, I will just give you a very brief introduction to what we can do. If you are interested in details, please feel free to contact me. Retailers can track customer anxiety by using different type of data. It could be experiential data you collected from marketing research about your customers, about your employees. It could be social media data that you scrape from Twitter or Facebook. It can also be operational data about your sales, about your inventory, and you could also run field studies to understand how consumer anxiety have changed after implementation of a store strategy. And this data can be measured and synthesized into KPIs to track the change of consumers' attitude and behaviors over time. And you can also use them to track the effectiveness of your mitigation strategies if you have any. You can also understand the impact of a certain external requirement and how that influences consumers, let's say shopping times or shopping frequencies, and how that can be linked to your profitability. To be more specific, the experiential data should cover consumers' motivation, their perceptions, and why they engage in certain behavior in stores and online. This can be done through customer surveys or in-depth interview, potential focus group as well. Operational data will give you some ideas about your inventory, sales, number of transactions, and the total size of your market. They might be able to tell you the impact of consumer anxiety on your profitability. Social media data, people will share their experience of shopping at stores, how they feel about their shopping experience, and scraping social media data from Facebook and Twitter and trying to understand the sentiments of consumers toward your brand can also be very helpful. And finally, you can use your field research data to invest people's shopping decisions in detail. For example, in this case, about what are the typical size of the shopping group, one person, two person, a family, and how this changed before and after the COVID, how much time people spend in store, and how frequent do they come, and what paths do they take in store, and how the physical restrictions and distancing, how the redesigned checkout lanes changed people's shopping paths in the store. I provide just one example for KPIs. So for example, that you could measure that three things. One is just a very simple anxiety level in stores as a survey. You could ask your customers, is there online survey or maybe at checkout a random sample of customers, how they feel when they shop in store, what's the anxiety level. There are different measures which can reflect their anxiety levels. Then you can combine this with customer browsing and purchase data to look at their shopping basket size, whether there's change of that, look at the varieties they buy, look at how much time they spend in stores, and then you can scrape social media data to look for keywords which reflect customers' perception of in-store experience, and all three can be put together as a simple KPIs to keep track of what's happening in store and how consumer anxiety is changing and how this is related with the change in your sales and profitability. Let's say you find a significant amount of anxiety among your shoppers. What can you do? The last thing I will discuss today is a few common simple strategies you could implement to mitigate the impact of anxiety. and to shape a better customer experience. How might retailers mitigate anxious consumers? One way is to use the data you have collected to identify and group new motivators and values. Your consumers have changed. They are not the same people who were shopping your store before and who were purchasing online before. Well, even if it's the same set of customers, they may not have the same mindset as before. Next, recognize the external pressures customers face regarding the economic downturn and the rising prices in food. Using this understanding to make marketing and service decisions while emphasizing with your customers. Think as well about the habit loop. You might see your customer's routine changed over time. So think about how to influence and how to protect those habits to ensure that you understand the routine and to ensure that you are part of their routine. Some service delivery mitigation tactics include making it easy to understand the new rules, ensure the rules are clear and transparent, make it easy for people to go to your store, to navigate the aisles, make it easy to find pickup locations, go beyond the requirement and regulation, ensure a clean and safe environment, and make it consistent. This is something I would even recommend at industry level. Try to standardize new services, reduce variation of new services across different retailers. It could be something as simple as making the curbside pickup location always in a fixed part of the parking lot. Okay, so consumers don't have to wonder, okay, where is the curbside pickup location in this new store, in this new location? It's always going to be the left side of the parking lot, for example. With new and more robust data sources from increased online shopping behavior, use those data to advantage to make better service predictions and set expectations. Predictions might include demand, supply chain disruptions, and prices, and think about them as you move forward to innovate and strategize for the future of your brand. I know this is not easy to do. I know many of you are still facing constant supply chain disruptions. But to improve customer experience, you have to make it better. You have to try. You can also get ideas from other industry. So for example, a nice smell might lower the level of anxiety for many people. If you have a bakery, make it smell nice. I know some of you even use artificial smells. So this may be a time to make your store smell nicer. And you can think about other service differentiators, right? Think about how you can enhance the experience and make people's life a bit easier. That will reduce anxiety. And remind people what is to feel in a familiar and comfortable environment, like what they used to feel in the grocery store before the pandemic. And of course, you must value technology and transparency of your experience or your customer experience of the design. So make the online experience personalized and at the same time make customer feel involved in making those rules, making up those process. So customer feel like they're part of that. They have been informed, they have been educated about what's happening, and they don't feel a shock every time they go to the store. Make sure you communicate the change to customer in an easy to understand way. And this differentiation will make you stand out because customer will think about which store I should go that I feel comfortable. And implementing strategies that can increase your comfort level will help you win additional customers. This concludes my presentation. Thank you very much for attending. You can find my email address and my website if you are interested in my work or if you have anything to share with me. We have a wonderful master program, Master in Retail Management. We have a lot of students who love to work with the retail industry. So please feel free to get in touch with me if you have any collaboration opportunities for our students. Thank you.